It's such a privilege to be part of this podcast. My name is Bron Williams and I'm based in Melbourne. I'm in my third act of life. In my first act, I was a teacher. That was something that I'd wanted to be from the age of 8, and so I pursued that career when I left high school. I married and had 3 wonderful sons. I finished my teaching career in 2004 as a school principal. And like so many people, my second act began when I had a life crisis, which for me was a divorce. Having a strong Christian background, I really wanted to explore what I could do in the Christian community space. And so I joined the Salvation Army, became an ordained minister of religion, and went on to do a degree and then my honours paper. As part of my work with the Salvation Army, the most pivotal experience I had was working with asylum seekers on Nauru, a small, independent Pacific Island nation. It was while I was working with a variety of different cultures that I had to confront my own racist bias and a sense of white privilege, neither of which I really had understood before or thought was part of who I was as a human being. My third act began when, at the age of 60, I decided I really wanted to pursue a long-held dream of becoming a professional speaker. And so I left the Salvation Army and started out in business on my own with absolutely no business background whatsoever. The last 8 years have been years of growth and change and learning. I've had the absolute delight of finding the love of my life online, as you do, and we married last year. And I had the privilege of speaking, training, working with largely women in the areas of unconscious bias and women and their power. And it's those 2 things that I want to talk with you today. But first, let me tell you a story. Let me tell you about the Patchwork Girl. The Patchwork Girl was born beautiful and perfect in every way, but she didn't know it. When she was a little girl, her parents would tell her how to behave, what to do, tell her not to scratch in public, stop swinging her legs in church, tell her how to clean her room. And each of those expectations were like patchwork pieces that were sewn over who she really was. As she grew older and went to school, the Patchwork Girl got messages from her teachers and also from her friends. Her teachers would tell her to stand up straight. Don't do that. You can't sit there. Make sure you have all your books. And her friends would tell her what to wear, how to speak, who to be friends with, which circle of people it was cool to be part of. And each of those needs, each of those expectations of other people were sewn like patchwork pieces over who she really was. As she grew to adulthood, the Patchwork Girl not only allowed other people's messaging to tell her what she should do and how she should act, but she actually went looking for patchwork pieces to sew over who she really was. Because she so wanted to not only be the good girl, but she wanted to be the good wife and be the good mother. This went on for years and years, until there came a time when the weight of those patchwork pieces over who she really was much too much to carry. And the Patchwork Girl decided that she couldn't add one more piece of patchwork to her life. It was at this time that she decided that she was going to unpick the pieces of patchwork that didn't really fit with who she was. Some pieces were easy to unpick. Snip, 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 and they fell away. However, it was the pieces that had been there the longest that were so deeply stitched into her heart that took a long time to unpick. However, there was one day when the Patchwork girl no longer had any pieces of the patchwork of other people's needs and other people's expectations sewn over who she really was. And she could see that she was beautiful and that she was perfect, just as she was, perfect in every way. And she is me. And I believe she is us. So many of us, whether we are cis, straight, trans, gay, bi, doesn't matter how we turn up in the world, whether we're able-bodied or live with disabilities. All of us are a little bit like the patchwork girl, where we've allowed the needs and expectations of other people to determine how we show up in the world. The things that I've learned as I've unpicked my patchwork pieces are that deep down, I am so much more powerful than I ever thought I was. I've had to come to grips with the fact that I've been giving my power away to people, particularly to men, for decades. And that I need to reclaim that power, rediscover that power, get back in touch with the power that is intrinsically and uniquely and organically mine, because that power is needed in the world. I do not need to be, you do not need to be like other people. You can be exactly who you are. And as we allow ourselves, we give ourselves permission to snip away at the patchwork pieces of other people's needs and expectations that we've allowed others to stitch onto us or that we've sewn onto ourselves. As we allow those to drop away, our own power shines through in beautiful and wonderful ways. And it is this that I encourage you to do. Take a look at what has been sewn over who you really are. Unpick the pieces that do not fit with who you are and let your power shine through. So just how do you start to get back in touch with that power? Well, there are 5 steps. The first one is to really cherish your own needs. Sometimes that will include having to explore for the first time what your real needs are. Listen to your body. Often your body will tell you what you need long before your head's caught up with what's going on. The second thing is to truly identify the things that you value. What are your values? How do you want to show up in the world? My 3 values are courage, creativity, and connection. The third step is to explore what drives you. And by this, I'm referring to our unconscious biases. Start to become aware of biases that you may have, like I did with my racist privilege. And we can do this by, first of all, listening to our body. Our bodies tell us so much about what's going on around us and how we're responding to it. Then we ask ourselves questions. What's just happened that makes me feel the way I do? Then the third thing is to think about the narratives and the stories that we've had in our lives that have shaped our current beliefs. And then the fourth part is to actually name the bias. So understand what drives you. Number 4 is to develop the art of self-reflection. Some of us do that quite naturally, but it is a skill that can be learned to take time to pause, to reflect on your life, whether it's recent or past. And then the 5th step is to write a new story. This may mean looking back at the narratives, the messages that you've been given as a child, as a young adult, or even that you've been living with as a woman, and deciding, do those narratives still fit? Are they really true to who I am? So that's how you can begin the process of getting back in touch with your power, your unique, wonderful power that the world so truly needs.